Yeah, okay. So, good evening, all. Thank you for joining in today. So, I'm going to be presenting my paper on supplier-induced demand for tertiary healthcare, evidence from a public health insurance program in India. So, this is a joint work with Dr. Shishir Devnath and Dr. Saurabh Paul. So, to begin by motivating the talk, I'd like to quote few numbers from the report by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. It quoted that there was a steep rise in the mortality rates due to non-communicable diseases in India from 37% in 1990 to 61% in 2016. Clearly, developing nations such as India are witnessing a shift in the burden of diseases from communicable diseases such as measles, HIV, influenza, to non-communicable diseases such as cancer, cardiovascular diseases, etc. Since communicable diseases are easily transmitted between individuals, government actually spends huge sums of money in order to intervene. However, for non-communicable diseases, government generally piggybacks on private healthcare facilities to provide such coverage. So consequently, there has been a mushrooming of various government-financed health insurance schemes to provide tertiary healthcare using private facilities. This leads to a classic problem of provider moral hazard in the presence of asymmetry of information, where doctors generally know more than the patients and as well as the government. So therefore, the doctors act as agents for patients to induce demand for state-funded treatment. This is very significant in countries like India. Why? Because we have low insurance cover for the population, and also patients spend huge sums of money and huge out-of-pocket expenditure to receive medical care. So our paper focuses on one such health insurance scheme in the state of Andhra Pradesh. There was a media coverage in the Times of India article in July 2010. The article quoted uterus snatchers of Andhra Pradesh, and it quoted how it highlighted how there were expensive hysterectomies were being performed in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So what is a hysterectomy? A hysterectomy is basically a surgical procedure that is performed in order to remove one or more reproductive organs of the woman. It can be fallopian tubes, uterus, ovaries, etc. A hysterectomy should generally not be performed if it's not medically required. However, the problem was that in the state of Andhra Pradesh, most of the hysterectomies were being performed in younger women, and this led to adverse health consequences. So what was happening? Basically, a health insurance scheme called the Rajiv Arogyasri Health Insurance Scheme was launched in the state in the year 2007 and 8. And the objective of the scheme was to deal with catastrophic medical expenditures for poorer households. So our paper tries to broadly address two questions. The first being, are publicly financed health insurance schemes counterproductive? That is, they lead to unnecessary medical procedures with adverse health consequences. And second, can supplier-induced demand be responsible for unfavorable welfare outcomes for the woman? So in particular, we try to study that even though schemes such as Arogyasri health insurance schemes are very helpful and beneficial for the poorer households, should they be taken with a pinch of salt since they can lead to unnecessary hysterectomies in the state? And second of all, we try to see if these indiscriminate hysterectomies actually increase the likelihood of experiencing domestic violence by the woman. Moving on, our paper focuses on three branches of literature review. First being, there has been some empirical literature on supplier-induced demand in healthcare. There are studies which show how changes in reimbursement rates affect the intensity and the quantity of medical services. Also, there has been a study by Cromwell and Mitchell which showed that areas which had more surgeons were more likely to induce higher fees and utilization rates. The second strand of literature are studies which focus on rising hysterectomy cases in India. They showed that there were a lot of corporate hospitals mushrooming in the city of Hyderabad, which is in Andhra Pradesh. And most of the surgeries in small nursing homes were actually hysterectomies. And finally, there has been few medical literature which shows how hysterectomy in younger women can lead to higher risk of cardiac arrest, severe physical and physiological implications such as insomnia, weight fluctuations, depressions, etc. And also, a paper in the International Journal of Human Services showed how women with hysterectomy were actually at higher odds of experiencing domestic violence. So what was this scheme all about? So Arogyasri scheme is a state-funded scheme. It covers approximately 938 procedures. One such procedure is hysterectomy. It's based on a public-private partnership model where the state government funds the treatments and it impanels a network of public and private hospitals. The unique feature of the scheme is that it is cashless in the sense the burden of claiming the reimbursement relies on the impaneled hospitals and not on the patients. And in terms of eligibility, all households with a BPL ration card were automatically enrolled under the scheme and they could go to any empaneled hospital and claim treatment. So we compared the reimbursement rates. There's a report by the World Bank which shows the comparison of reimbursement rates with other central health insurance scheme and another state health insurance scheme. So comparing the package rates for hysterectomy in Arogyasri with CGHS, which is nothing but Central Government Health Insurance Scheme, and RSBY, which is Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. Both are spanning all over India. The package rates for hysterectomy are very low. And similarly, comparing it with another state health insurance scheme in the southern state of India, we see that Arogyasri has higher reimbursement rates for hysterectomy. Clearly, private players had some incentive to induce demand and earn revenue. So moving on to the data sources, we broadly use two sources of data. For the first is the fourth round of National Family and Health Survey. It was conducted in the year 2015-16. It's a large-scale survey. It is administered to approximately 699,000 women. So the survey had questions on: did the woman undergo hysterectomy? When was the procedure? How many years ago was the procedure performed? The place where the procedure was performed, and the reason for the surgery. Additionally, one woman out of every household was selected for the domestic violence module, and she was asked questions on if she experienced physical, emotional, or sexual violence. We also supplement our analysis with another set of publicly available patient level claim data. So it's basically a census of administrative records of claims that are made under the scheme. It includes the type of surgery, the surgery date, the claim amount, the name of the hospital, the district of the hospital, etc. So moving on to some summary statistics from NFHS, we see that approximately 18,000 women reported having undergone hysterectomy out of the total 699,000 women, close to 699,000 women. Also, the women who underwent hysterectomy were on an average more likely to have access to state health insurance scheme and experiencing some sort of domestic violence. In terms of years of education, women who underwent hysterectomy reported 4 years of education compared to approximately 7 years of education for the remaining sample. And in terms of husband's education, we observe that it's more or less, it's closer. So yeah, moving on to some plots. The plot on the left panel basically shows district-wise rates of hysterectomies. So the darker shade of red means a higher rate of hysterectomy in the state. So the scheme, the Arogyasri scheme, was implemented in the year 2007 and 8, and the data is collected in 2015-16. However, the state split into Telangana and Andhra Pradesh somewhere in 2014. So that is why from now on, when I say Andhra Pradesh, I refer to the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. And we see darker shades of red in the state of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana as compared to the other states of India. And we plot another graph which shows the district-wise rates of access to state health insurance scheme. Now, please note that these are just access to state health insurance schemes that we are plotting. There were other variables which include access to CGHS, RSBI, etc. Clearly, there is a relationship between a woman living in Andhra Pradesh and having access to state health insurance scheme, and she's more likely to undergo hysterectomy. So supplementing all of this information with few more plots using the claims data. So we plot the total number of hysterectomy claims by type of hospital. So the dotted line represents the hysterectomies in public hospitals, and the solid line represents the hysterectomies in private hospitals. The scheme was introduced in 2008, and you can see a steep rise in the number of hysterectomy claims post that. However, sometime during mid 2009, there were a lot of media coverage which reported increasing cases of hysterectomy in the state, post which the government imposed some certain restrictions in April 2010. So basically, stricter guidelines were imposed to perform the procedure. They had to submit some evidences, proofs, and also some pre-authorizations were required. And ultimately, in July 2011, the procedure was reserved for public hospitals only. So basically, a private hospital could not perform the procedure. And we see a steep rise, a steep fall in the total number of claims under hysterectomy. Moving on to the econometric model, we run a linear regression model where our dependent variable is a binary variable that takes the value 1 if the woman reported having undergone hysterectomy. Our key variable of interest is the interaction term between AP and SI, where AP and SI both are binary variables. AP stands for if the woman lives in Andhra Pradesh, and SI stands for if she has access to a state health insurance scheme. We control for various covariates such as her education, caste, religion, the number of children she has, the household members, etc. And we also control for district level fixed effects. In addition, please note that our standard errors are robust and clustered at the state level. So quickly jumping on to the regression results, I am going to explain column 3, which includes both controls as well as it controls for district fixed effects. We see that a woman living in Andhra Pradesh and having access to state health insurance scheme is 3.3 percentage points more likely to undergo hysterectomy. Moving on to another table. So here the dependent variable is defined as a binary variable if the woman underwent hysterectomy in a private hospital. And in column 2, it's a binary variable for if the woman underwent hysterectomy in a public hospital. We see that our results are insignificant for column 2, that are the hysterectomies performed in public hospital. However, a woman is 3.2 percentage points more likely to undergo a hysterectomy in private hospital. Up until now, we show that the scheme might have led to some increase in the number of hysterectomies, and we go on to somehow prove and supplement our analysis that indeed these hysterectomies were suffering from some sort of provider moral hazard problem. So there's a paper by Cromwell and Mitchell which shows that regions which have greater competition among surgeons or hospitals results in more number of surgeries being undertaken in that particular region. In order to see this with our data, we create a measure of hospital competition. So basically, neighboring districts in the state of Andhra Pradesh, they were clustered to form 6 district markets. And for every hospital in the district market, we create a proportion of patient claims. And we square and sum these shares for every district market to arrive at the HHI index or the Herfindahl-Hirschman index. A higher value of higher value of the HHI index indicates lower competition among hospitals and vice versa. So we run a linear regression model once again. The binary variable is as before. However, our new variable of interest is HHI, which is the Herfindahl-Hirschman index, the measure for hospital competition. Please note that the results that are in this particular table are only for the state of Andhra Pradesh or the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh, because we have the claims data for only those states, for only that state. So our results are significant for column 1 and 2, that is if the hysterectomy was performed irrespective of the type of hospital, and if the hysterectomy was performed in private hospital only. However, our results are insignificant for public hospitals. So what does these coefficients indicate? A higher value of HHI index or a lower competition between hospitals means that the woman was say 58.7 percentage points less likely to perform hysterectomy in the private hospital. So what is the summary so far? So far, we show that Aarogyasri led to an increase in the probability of undergoing hysterectomy by 3.3 percentage points. And these were more likely to be performed in a private hospital by 3.2 percentage points. And we also show that higher competition or lower HHI means that the hysterectomy was less likely to be performed in private hospitals. So now we sort of switch gears and we try to show that these unnecessary hysterectomies in fact had an impact on the welfare consequences for women. They led to an increase in the likelihood of her experiencing domestic violence. So, as I just mentioned before, there are medical implications of hysterectomy. She faces hormonal imbalance, weight fluctuations, loss of sexual desire, osteoporosis, and all of these complications are further enhanced if the woman undergoes them in her younger age. So this has two implications. First, she is less likely to complete her domestic course or contribute to the labor force. And second, if she is unable to reproduce post surgery, and if the husband or the partner wants more children, she's more likely to experience some sort of domestic violence. However, our empirical challenges that undergoing hysterectomy is endogenous and linear regression would give us biased results because of omitted variable bias. And therefore, we employ a two-stage least square estimation to study the impact of hysterectomy on the probability of domestic violence. The instrument in our case is the interaction term between a woman living in Andhra Pradesh and having access to state health insurance. So this particular slide, it shows the two equations. The structural equation, the dependent variable in the structural equation is a binary variable that takes the value 1 if she experiences any sort of domestic violence. And the first stage regression is same as before. Please note that we again include all covariates as well as control for district level fixed effects. And also our standard errors are robust and clustered at the state level. So before I address the validity concerns, I'll just quickly show the first stage and second stage results. So in terms of the first stage results, we see that our instrument is positively and significantly correlated with hysterectomies which are performed irrespective of the type of hospital and if they're performed in private hospital only. However, the sign is perverse for hysterectomies which are performed in public hospital. So also, so we drop instrumenting for public hospital hysterectomies and we focus only on column 1 and 2 in order to further look at the weak null hypothesis and reject the null hypothesis for weak instruments. We look at the Kleiberg and PAP RKF statistics, which is greater than 10 for only those hysterectomies which are performed in private hospitals. So we just instrument for hysterectomies in private hospitals since we can reject our null hypothesis for weak instruments there. Moving on to the second stage results, we show that hysterectomies which were performed in private hospitals, women who reported those hysterectomies were 71.6 percentage points more likely to experience any sort of physical violence and 64.9 percentage points more likely to experience emotional violence. However, our results are insignificant for sexual violence. So the questions under the sexual violence were that if your partner forces you into unwanted sexual acts or having intimate relationships. And since medical literature already shows that since a woman cannot reproduce or maybe facing some sort of loss of sexual desire, she is less likely to be subject to sexual violence as compared to the other types of violences. Moving on to the validity of the instrument, I already established that the first our interaction term or our instrument is significantly correlated with hysterectomies in private hospital, and we can also reject the null hypothesis of weak instruments. Addressing the exogeneity concerns, we try to prove that there are no confounding variables in the error term, which can affect both our instrument, that is the interaction term, and the probability or likelihood of having experiencing domestic violence. So there can be, we argue, there can be certain surgeries which were affected due to Aarogyasri scheme, which affected women and which could have been responsible for domestic violence. We try to prove this using one such surgery, which is mastectomy. So mastectomy is basically the surgical removal of one or more breasts partially or completely. This particular procedure was also covered under Aarogyasri. And being a cosmetic and invasive procedure, it is less difficult to induce the demand for such a procedure. So we plot using the claims data, we plot the total number of mastectomy claims by the type of hospital, both private and public. And seeing those two timelines that I showed before for the hysterectomy claims, we do not see very sharp fall or rises in the total number of mastectomy claims. Additionally, we also use the NFHS data to perform some placebo checks. So basically, we try to use the non-equivalent dependent variable approach. This is a term which was coined in a paper in the 2011 paper by Corden and Hobson, which basically says it consists of similar variables which have similar latent constructs, but they're not predicted to undergo any changes due to our treatment variable. So for cancer, asthma, diabetes, all of which are covered under Aarogyasri, we just try to see if we see the similar results using our instrument. And in fact, the coefficients are perverse. We see a negative sign for them. So finally concluding, our results motivate the need for medical audits, stricter enforcements for medical ethics, more awareness, public awareness among the individuals and citizens if we want the schemes to be better. Though they are helping millions of poor and especially providing coverage for treatments which require huge sums of money, especially for poorer households, maybe we should be a little more cautious while implementing these schemes. And all these results gain huge significance in the face of the new Ayushman Bharat insurance scheme, which is being launched for poorer households. And yeah, so thank you so much. I can take on any questions, or like after the discussions, I can take on questions shortly.
Thank you so much for inviting me to discuss this paper. It's a very interesting and important paper. And so let me tell you a little bit why, right? So there has been a very large expansion of these government financed private, of government financing of private medical care in India, particularly at the tertiary level. Komal talked about Ayushman Bharat, and this has been a massive expansion of government financing of care at private hospitals. And so, of course, the big promise of this is that there might be large expansion of tertiary care for the poor, and therefore lead to large welfare gains. And she did motivate much of her work with explaining that, particularly because these tertiary care expenses tend to drive many households into poverty. So if the government does not finance tertiary care, households will delay care, the problems become larger, and then dealing with them either with private or government financing basically means that our overall healthcare expenditures are much higher than they would ought to be. So government intervention is potentially useful in this, in the entire economy, particularly to get care earlier and help households avoid poverty. So I think within this also she's framed this correctly that despite this, every time you have a third party which is removed, which is not the patient, seeking to pay for these schemes for the procedure, what will happen is that the private entity, the private hospital might be suffering from moral hazard problems. And so you might have excess procedures. So the cost of this is disproportionately health costs, which are borne by the poor, but it's also the state also pays for this unnecessary procedure. So it's both the state as well as the patient who pays, right? And so what this study is doing, so in that context, what the study is doing is they're looking at the Aarogyasri program in Andhra Pradesh, and which did cover the hysterectomy procedure in private hospitals initially. And so if this procedure is potentially profitable, and Komal seems to suggest that at least they get large reimbursements, then the hospitals have an incentive to conduct more procedures than necessary. Of course, this is not entirely a conclusive point because we don't see the marginal cost for the hospital, but the reimbursement was 20,000 rupees, so there is the potential for large profits. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there's the health cost which is borne by the patient or by the woman, plus the financial cost of the state for all these potentially unnecessary procedures, right? And so the main result is that AP households with access to Aarogyasri had more hysterectomies, and women who underwent hysterectomies are more likely to face gender-based violence. So that's the summary of the paper. It's a really nice paper, and also I googled who Komal was. I haven't met her, sorry, but she's an early stage PhD student. So in that sense, it's a very impressive piece of work to have achieved so much in this paper. But I can go on and on about why this is an awesome paper. But I imagine that most of you are here to hear how to improve the paper, because that's the objective of the workshop. So, I think here are some comments on how to improve the paper. I think, here's use this term. The first three words of your paper in the title are supplier-induced demand, right? Which almost necessarily implies that more hysterectomies in this case are necessarily bad. So it's not because of the patient's needs, but because of the hospital's profits that we're seeing all these hysterectomies. So I'd be very careful in making sure that this really is a case of supply-induced demand. And here are a couple of alternate theories why it could be something else. So with the same empirical patterns, the same empirical results that you report, you could be, it could be something else which is happening. So first is that, it's simply pent-up demand from the procedure. So it's not as if people in general don't have hysterectomies. There are genuine medical reasons why this procedure is performed. And if you have poor households, and Aarogyasri was for below poverty line households, they were facing a credit constraint. And when Aarogyasri comes in AP, the high, yes, sure, there are more profits for the private hospitals, but the advantage of the Aarogyasri scheme is that it was relaxing a genuine supply constraint. And therefore we saw more procedures, right? And especially when I saw that chart, when there were a lot of procedures in 2009 and 10, that's the instinctive answer that I would give. That of all these years, there were all these women who needed hysterectomies. They couldn't afford one. Aarogyasri does give high profits to the private hospital, but it was serving a genuine need, right? And so it might not be supply-induced demand. It might be patient-induced demand as well, right? And so what you're seeing are equilibrium results. And so this is an alternate explanation for what you're saying. And therefore, it would suggest that the procedures that you observe are welfare enhancing, not in welfare depleting. So here's another theory. It could reflect social information transmission, right? So imagine the one woman from a certain village. So there are multiple women in the village. All of them are now equally eligible for Aarogyasri. All of them are, need hysterectomies. And so now when you see one woman go for a procedure, then you'll see many other women also going for procedures, right? And so this aspect of social information transmission. So Shishir and I investigated this for the case of Aarogyasri in our paper. So you should certainly look up that paper. So these are all ways in which you could think of this as welfare enhancing and yet be consistent with your empirical. I think what I would suggest is that you should come up with more evidence. It can be both qualitative or quantitative, that the greater hysterectomies were actually reflecting supply-induced demand, because that's a very strong claim that you made, and were therefore welfare decreasing in nature. My second comment is about the research design. Essentially what you're doing is using NFHS4. You're comparing AP versus rest of India. So you're comparing a household in Andhra Pradesh to one in Punjab and one in Assam, and those are very different households in various ways. And so a simple sample restriction I would suggest is to just restrict to neighboring states only. And if you want to be even more precise, just come up with this neighboring districts, Bidar versus, neighboring Andhra Pradesh district and so on and so forth. And that will give you much more precise estimates. And they're also much more meaningful comparisons. Trying to compare a household in Punjab to one in AP just makes no sense. Right? So the other point is that you're essentially looking at this as a cross-sectional variation. So your treatment variation are in AP and access to social state-sponsored health insurance. So the omitted variable over here very well might be that there's a tendency to use, right? So think of like a medical condition or a health condition, which is endemic in AP, but is not elsewhere all that prevalent. So what you want to do is really control for the underlying conditions, either health conditions or procedure tendency to go for the procedure in a given community. Now, of course, NFHS is not a panel survey, so you can't control for it within that household. And in any case, controlling within the household makes no sense, because no one goes through repeat hysterectomies. You only go through it once. So one suggestion is that create a variable from either a previous NFHS survey or perhaps DLHS, which tells you the district cast rate of the hysterectomy or the underlying health conditions, and put that on the control that for that on the right hand side. So that's a suggestion. My third suggestion is that NFHS is national, so there's no reason to make this an AP paper. In fact, you have this very cool chart in your presentation. I didn't see it in the paper, but you do show me, did show us, all of us, the rates by state. And so what you could simply do is to say, here's the potential, here's the rate by state. It varies across different states. So therefore the potential profit margin is also varying by state. So therefore the incentive varies by state. And the stronger incentives are associated with greater hysterectomies. So now you can go away from the AP data and make this a national comparison. And I think that would be quite powerful. Right? And so it's just a wider methodology, but a national population. And I think that would be useful. Okay, finally about your instrument. You use your main result, not your mean result, as the first stage for the gender-based violence result. So essentially the IV strategy that you're doing is that you have a first stage, which is being in AP and having access to health insurance leads to more hysterectomies, and then more hysterectomies lead to more gender-based violence, right? So your main result is your first stage, and you're adding on the second stage. But I think you'd really run into this problem at the household level of unobservable factors, right? So you could end up with, an unobservable factor like husband is a jerk. Husband is a jerk means the household respondent is less likely to say that they have access to state insurance, and they're going to be more gender-based violence, right? So in that one example, basically you don't have an exclusion restriction anymore. So you have to think a lot about these results. I believe your first set of results a lot more than I do your instrumented gender-based violence results. So just think a little bit about that. And finally, some broader points about how you've written this paper. And I think this is generally correct. I hope that the other PhD students in the audience are also paying a little bit of attention to this. Be very careful about how you frame these problems and use your introduction. Your introduction is the most valuable real estate that you have. The vast majority of your readers are only going to ever read your introduction. They're never going to go beyond that. So one is that you should have told us why you think that this particular procedure is useful to analyze, to understand supply and induced demand. Why not so many other procedures? NFHS reports a large number of. So yes, of course, I feel bad about people who might go through hysterectomies, but for the economics analysis, you have to say what is so useful for this from this medical procedure perspective that allows us to understand supply and induced demand in more detail, right? If you don't find an effect on the other procedures, I think if I put on my really hard-nosed referee hat, I would complain that, you know what she did? These authors, they ran the regression for 7 different procedures, found the result on one of them, and then just said that the rest are placebos. And I would say that let's just go have at least a first principles approach to explaining why you think that hysterectomies are the correct procedure to understand supply and demand. In your introduction, you have the single statistic on hysterectomy rate, which is high and increased, but there is no policy motivation, no economic motivation, and no health motivation, apart from that one single rate that you mentioned. And so perhaps you want to have a more elaborate discussion on that. The second paragraph in the introduction, very valuable real estate. It's basically someone has some tangential paper on Ghana, you like waste, that valuable real estate on discussing that paper endlessly. So, just think a little bit about how you're writing. And I think you'd want to come up with very strong citation support, especially every time you make a health or medical assertion. So for example, you write that mastectomy is a cosmetic surgery. 2 minutes on Google as well as my own life experiences tells me that mastectomies also happen as preventive treatment for breast cancer. And that's essentially the physician's call. So you'd want to make sure that you cite the medical literature extensively to make a claim like mastectomy is a cosmetic surgery, right? So economic statements are easier to not cite simply because you're speaking to an audience of economists. So if you say that moral hazard is a concern in third-party payments, we all understand that. But every time you make a medical claim or a health claim, you should cite the medical literature because most of us don't know that literature, right? Finally, I'd say copy edit and proofread your paper very carefully. Words like Arogashi should be spelled correctly. Hyderabad. So those are like words you want to, where the spelling and proofreading should be absolutely top. So that's all I have. So great paper. So thank you so much for letting me discuss it and share my thoughts. And I look forward to seeing the next version of it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So Komal, why don't you respond to Tarun a bit, and then we'll go to the questions from other participants.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I think those were really useful comments. So this is a very preliminary work, first of all, to begin with. It's when I said, okay, responding to some quick comments, when I said mastectomy is a cosmetic surgery, I didn't mean it to be a cosmetic surgery. What I meant is that since it's easily visible on women compared to hysterectomy, so it's a woman might not want to undergo removal of breasts compared to removal of uterus or ovaries or something of that sort. I know it's because it's performed because you have breast cancer and all, but it's like visible to people if you perform that surgery, and therefore it may be very difficult for doctors or physicians to convince a woman that you need to undergo this just because you have some problem in the you need to undergo this because you cannot like just have supply-induced demand there. Also, I think that was a very useful comment. I need to check back on all of the proofreading and everything, and also how to motivate why I want to study hysterectomy per se and not other procedures. So that I'll just do some work on. And Okay, so the other question, the other paper, I think I have gone through that paper which says that hysterectomy can be socially transmitted. You just know about that procedure from your nearest neighbor, and then you just go and know that you might need that procedure. But I should quote that medical literature, but there are tons of medical literature which say that you shouldn't go a hysterectomy until and unless it's absolutely necessary. You can go for sterilization or other procedures to stop if you don't want more children. But hysterectomy is one such procedure where medical literature emphasizes again and again that should not be undergone until and unless you have, say, cancer or like cysts in your ovaries or all of those things. So yeah, these are all the things that come to my mind right now. And I can also, that was also a good point. I can look into the nationwide incentives to different states and just incorporate that in the paper. And I'll also think more on the validity concerns to make the instrumentality more stronger. So thank you so much, Tarun.
So I will go to Sania's question on the window, but let me just give you one idea to somewhat respond to Tarun that this is not a mechanical result you're presenting by running it across all procedures. Maybe you want to show some falsification tests across other procedures where this is not happening, and that would somewhat mitigate reviewer concerns on how this is not just you finding results in hysterectomy and showing it, whereas other procedures related to women did not show the results. So some sort of unpacking the data and showing that could actually calm down the reviewer a bit. And on the supplier induced demand, if I may quickly comment, I had some thoughts on how to control for that because there is another paper. I'm not with the paper that Shishir and Tarun have done, but we have worked on health insurance in Karnataka Vajpayee Arogyashi scheme. So I'll send you an email on how to take care of that and be more specific in identifying that it's coming from the demand side. Uh, and my last comment is, I think the work is pretty interesting. It may actually give you more papers. So if you just Google on NBR hysterectomy, you'll see an article by folks, and Shia Iyer at LSE is also doing some work here related to religious tastes and preferences, driving how certain types of hospitals are more amenable to certain procedures, even with a public health insurance scheme like the one that you're exploring, than others. So you may actually be able to exploit that in the context of hospital heterogeneity in your data for a different paper. And that's something to keep in mind, because some of these non-urban areas in your data do have the presence of missionary hospitals. So there's some interesting stuff to be told there, I suppose. Let's go to Sanya's question. So Sanya is asking, let me see. Wouldn't lower sexual drive caused by a hysterectomy be a trigger for increased sexual violence by the partner? And she follows up with another question, which is, it would be really interesting to see a price differential of the Aarogyasri scheme package rates versus other state/national scheme package rates to see if there's a differential that's driving this take up essentially. So do you want to respond to that, Komal?
In terms of the first question, which is wouldn't lower sexual drive cause be a trigger for increased sexual violence? So actually, there has been some qualitative evidences. So where my paper sort of was motivated from, I quoted one or two papers which basically showed that women were more likely to not experience because of sexual violence. So the spouses had extramarital affairs, and they were more likely to have second marriages, and that's why but however, we can further explore this and actually come up with a mechanism in order to see that if these increase, if there is no, I mean, why such results are being observed. And to the second question, to see
price
if it is
differentials.
yeah, the price differentials. So yeah, I can actually supplement this, but just telling you right now, it's actually the difference exists between Aarogyasri and other state national schemes. Why? Because Aarogyasri generally covers higher price tertiary care. So even in terms of hysterectomy, it covers the higher end types of hysterectomy compared to the other state national scheme packages. So there is a differential pattern for other schemes as well. So it's not just hysterectomy.
Okay, Dr. Nilangi Sardesh Pandey says that her doctoral dissertation looked at the acceptance of hysterectomy in young women in Maharashtra. And it's a qualitative study, but she knows the literature there to help you in understanding tastes and preferences for the procedure in India.
Okay, thank you so much. I would be happy to read that.
Chirantan, there's another question by Abhishek Tripathi. It was somewhere up there. It's asked.
Okay, yeah, I see it. So is there any specific basis for segregating districts into 6 zones? Abhishek, for now, we just did a very preliminary segregation of districts into district markets. We can look into some more advanced spatial methods of clustering the districts. So that's like something which I plan on doing later. But this was a very rough way of doing it for now.
Okay. One quick comment, Komal, to mitigate some of the concerns on this is identified, you might want to ponder on putting in some structure on the choice-making process, the mechanism through which women are making this choice. This also attends to some of Tarun's concerns on how is it a social information transmission mechanism or not. So you can think of starting like, I don't know, maybe a utility framework where price and non-price factors are playing into the choice being made, and that can motivate some of your testable predictions.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, that will be helpful. And also, if you could share your paper, I'll be really happy to read that also. Thank you so much.
So